This video was made possible by sponsors like you. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. When you think musicals in animation, one word always comes to mind. Disney's bread and butter is made on the backs of musicals and animation, and has caused a ripple effect for others to follow that very same pattern in hopes of getting a fraction of what Disney has achieved. They've proven to be among the most popular and profitable movies in animation history, keeping their claws in deep to our collective nostalgia, so much so that they are remaking the entire library with very little alterations. But as a kid who was brought to many different forms of musicals over my life, there is just so many more wondrous animated musicals out there that we're missing because we keep just focusing on the mouse. Well, I'm WHYBOY, and today I want to flip the script. Let's not focus on the cavalcade of Disney musicals, but let's list the musicals that use animation, orchestration, and storytelling to immerse you into a world of joy, strife, and wonder, and of course brilliant music. This is my top 10 non-Disney musicals. The Year Without a Santa Claus. I'm starting off on a very nostalgic note. This was not only one of my first musicals, but it's also one of my first stop-motion experiences I've ever had. Rankin Bass animation may be considered stilted by today's standards, given we have studios such as Laika out there making amazing pieces of art with stop-motion, but back then, it was all about Rankin Bass. They took the iconography of Santa Claus and Christmas, and to this day, have left a mark in my life and in popular culture. How often are you out during the holiday season and you hear the song the Miser Brothers playing? Not to mention the rest of the songs are catchy, wholesome, and heartwarming, along with having a story that is simplistic but innocent and cute. It's still a tear-jerker scene to hear "I'll Have a Blue Christmas" every time I watch the movie. When those holiday bells come a-jingling, my heart begins a-ringing for The Year Without a Santa Claus.
Truly, somehow Santa Claus always comes.
Steven Universe, the movie. Now we got a movie here that really sets the standard for what an anime musical should be. The bare minimum standard. That isn't to say the movie is bad or anything. The movie gives us better animation than the show, all the characters that you love are back and are on point, and we got a sympathetic villain in Spinel right here. For most Steven Universe fans, this is going to be an incredibly fun ride, and make them feel very sentimental for the time they placed into watching this series. As a musical, it does everything that a good musical should do. The musical numbers are there to advance the narrative and character dynamic on display, and the staging of each number is dynamic and pairs beautifully with the well-orchestrated music. The biggest drawbacks are essentially if you aren't a Steven U fan, it won't pull you in as much as other musicals would, as a lot of the movie is prefaced on the emotional connection you've made with the characters throughout the entire show. And it's essentially another story of pink diamonds ruined somebody else's life. Oh, Steven's gotta fix it. Oh, his life's ruined. Steven Universe the movie is certainly a solid movie, and although it might not be as engaging for non-fans, on its own it sets the bar for what a musical should be like. Here we are. Charlotte's Web. This is a wholesome as heck movie. A pig being saved by Mary Poppins' spider through web graffiti. I don't think anything could ruin that classic story.
Oh! Did you get it? Yep. Bullseye.
But this is the 1973 animated musical, and with the wholesome music quality of the time, there are some great musical numbers in Charlotte's Web. Mother Earth and Father Time and Deep in the Dark stand out as some of the highlights with their strong visual presence with calming and flowing lyrics. The rest of the songs are good too, but don't really flow with the narrative. While each one of the other songs also featured some great staging and choreography, they unfortunately also feel like interludes within the narrative. Rather than the music telling the story or a character's motivation, it instead just reiterates again and again info we already know. Or like Templeton's song reprise, cut the tension of Charlotte's death scene in half with a fat tubby rat.
What a night! Never have I seen such leavings. Everything well ripened, seasoned with the passage of time and the heat of the day.
Don't pay any attention to me, Wilbur. I just don't have any pep anymore. I think I'm languishing, to tell you the truth.
Oh, it was rich, my friends. Rich.
Apart from the tonal whiplash, the songs still carry a boisterous joy to them, making even the interludes just a fun time like an awkward parade. Cats Don't Dance. Calling this movie colorful would be an understatement. Cats Don't Dance is definitely the most vibrant and bombastic of the musicals on this list, letting the characters both sickeningly sweet and delightfully evil have their chance to make their presence known with some of the most explosive musical numbers around. This is as close to a Disney movie you'll get on this list, as along with the incredible soundtrack, Darla Dimple comes out as the most entertaining villain around. Acting as a psychotically volatile Shirley Temple, Darla and her delicate but humongous servant Max take the movie as the stars of it for how enjoyably evil they are.
How does the kitty cat go?
Meow.
Very good.
Now that isn't to say our main cast of animals, including Blaine and Danny here, are bad and don't get their own great moments and aren't a clever visual parallel to minorities from the 1940s who were discriminated and typecast like we see in the movie. But in comparison, they are just kind of mediocre, especially given how the love interest Sawyer comes across as a much more dynamic character than Danny. It's only with the amazing scoring and villains that it propels Cats Don't Dance into a grand uproar of excitement and pizzazz.
I should have drowned you all when I flooded the stage!
The Road to El Dorado. I'll be honest, I didn't watch El Dorado before I started making this list, and I hadn't even heard of El Dorado being classified as a musical. From the trailers and visuals, it looked more like a kooky Indiana Jones-esque road trip adventure. But watching it finally showed me that while it is a musical, it also acts very differently from usual musicals. Usually all the musical numbers would be sung by the characters on screen and there would be visual accompaniment along with it. And apart from the headlining song It's Tough to Be a God, which has both in spades, every other song is sung by the main characters Tulio and Miguel, but we don't see them on screen singing. We see them interacting with their environment and essentially displaying the emotion of the song through their body language, essentially giving us more character-defining action in both of them than we would have if they were always singing on screen. Apart from that brilliance, this is just a really fun adventure movie, starring some likable con artists with one really insane villain, and a cute armadillo. So if you don't want to watch Road to El Dorado for the great adventure, clever characters, and engaging music, then do it for this armadillo boy.
The stars are not in position for this tribute.
Like he says, stars. Can't do it. Not today.
South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. You never would have thought that South Park would be on a list of the best animated musicals, but here you go. Among all the swearing, death, nudity, and fart jokes, the composing and staging of the South Park movie's musical numbers is incredible given the South Park style. And apart from Saddam Hussein's song, which was intentionally made annoying for clear lambasting purposes, all the music is booming, catchy, and powerful in its orchestration and staging. It just creates a weird feeling how all these Disney musical clones out there treat all their musical numbers as interludes in the plot, when a social political satire movie like South Park instead shows real dedication and respect, making the lyrics hilariously adult and childish, but accompanying that with incredible musical scoring to pull the audience throughout the musical. It really is odd how a literal parody of all things related to animated musicals has somehow made it to the list of the best. However, with Trey Parker and Matt Stone behind the project, who were both into musicals and even went on to create their own Broadway musical, The Book of Mormon, which is also fantastic from what I've heard, a clever and insightful satire of musicals while also being a wonderful musical too, was really just a guarantee.
Thank God we live in the quiet little redneck podunk white trash USA. Can I have 5 tickets to Terrence and Philip Asses of Fire, please? No!
Legends of Oz, Dorothy's Return. This is the point of the list you may be suspect of my musical tastes, but seriously, Legends of Oz, the famous absolute travesty of a movie release and production, it's not only a fantastic movie, which you can see why in this Cartoon Corner review of it, but it really is an amazingly done musical too. There are many critics that rightfully compare the movie to the original 1939 movie, pointing out the glaring weirdness of being a pseudo-sequel. We have Dorothy modernized, and there's a change in the music from the simple, wholesome but boisterous composing of Herbert Stothart and go for a more contemporary pop music soundtrack. However, for myself, I was astonished by how much the music really carried the movie. While Dorothy and her friends create a fun and engaging road trip story through Oz, the musical numbers and staging of the movie create an interesting build-up of the theme of coming together to overcome disaster. Much like how the 1939 film was parallel to Dorothy's struggle of learning self-sufficiency and the virtue of working hard to reach your goals, Legends of Oz is parallel to the theme of rebuilding after tragedy strikes, and the choice of either building yourself up alone or finding help. I'll definitely want to tackle this theme in a much more in-depth re-review of Legends of Oz. But simply put, the story and the music work in tandem to show how Dorothy's attempts to fix things work out as she brings in friends into her fold, and show that they have the choice to make things better and aren't stuck just because a disaster has occurred. That nuance of telling the theme and story through the music as well as the plot, I don't see why shouldn't Legends of Oz Dorothy's Return be considered one of the best musicals. Wakko's Wish. The Animaniacs have always been best known for their hilarious tongue-in-cheek and slightly risque humor. Now we have a whole movie filled with that, with all your favorites including Pinky, Brain, Nurse, Slappy, Skippy, Thaddeus, Ralph, Dr. Otto, and many, many more, but starring our Warner brothers and sisters themselves, Yakko, Wakko, and Dot. The movie is chock-filled with brilliantly timed and written jokes meant for kids and adults, including many out-of-place adult references that are so out of nowhere. Even if you are a kid, the reference is just so weird, it's funny too. But at the same time, Wakko's Wish does exactly what South Park succeeded in, and by making a parody of musicals, they became an amazing musical in of itself. And a very different sort of musical too. In most musicals, even in the best, there is plenty of breathing room in between the songs to use the narrative to bring the story to the next musical set piece. Not in Wakko's Wish, because the story is just get to the thing. And with such a simplistic story, this movie can fit in so many musical numbers and orchestrations to play along to the hijinks that it creates a constantly moving and flowing race to the finish, making it both energizing and exciting, especially with the incredible use of shifting tempo in the music. Wakko's Wish completely mocks the animated musical genre from beginning to end. It just wants to eviscerate how nauseatingly trite some of the writing can be. It does this in spades, but succeeds to also make the point that if you're gonna make a musical, do it like Wakko's Wish and make it an incredible one too.
Maybe we should have kept this our little secret.
The Wishing Star!
The Prince of Egypt. If I were to describe this movie in one word, it'd be ballsy. Unlike anything Disney has ever done, DreamWorks took a gamble in not only adapting a religious tale, but depicting the story of Moses in such a powerful and brutal atmosphere. Never pulling any punches on the atrocities that occur on both sides of this war of ideals, and using the grandness of the visuals and orchestral scoring to instill a constant barrage of power over the viewer. At its core, this is a heartbreaking tale of two brothers, Moses and Ramses, forced into an unwinnable conflict where by the end of the argument and pain, both leave losing everything they once were. It shows this emotional turmoil not just through the dialogue and music, but through detailed animation of the anguish, frustration, and turmoil these brothers go through to stick true to what they believe is right. Not to mention, again, this feeling is magnified with the musical scoring that ranges from weightless and angelic to harsh and oppressive, and only giving you a break once the dust is settled. This isn't the most fun musical to listen to, but The Prince of Egypt is hands down the most poignant and powerful, and that alone should be reason enough for why you should see it. Smallfoot. I'll say this right out of the gate. Smallfoot, whose trailer depicted a Yeti movie that was less than ideal, is not only my favorite non-Disney musical, but it's probably one of my favorite musicals, even if I included Disney musicals. For most of the people who haven't seen it, the story is about a Yeti named Migo who lived with the rest of his Yeti kind in the Himalayas, living unaware of the world below the clouds and being incredibly alright with that. It's not until Migo happens to meet the mythical Smallfoot and is labeled crazy by the rest of the tribe that he sets out to prove the Smallfoot is real and have his and their kind learn to coexist. The movie pushes themes of coexistence and challenging the status quo very heavily, but frames it all within a manageable childish form which makes it both wholesome and sweet, but poignant and mature. But if Smallfoot was just that, it would just be a great movie. But with its music, it propels everything to masterful heights. I always begrudge musicals that waste your time with just a nice sounding interlude. Like, if the music doesn't benefit the narrative or character growth, why even feature it? Hey, Nero, get out of here! Smallfoot does not have that problem at all. Almost every song has multiple levels to what it contributes to the movie to flesh out the world and characters. The opening song Perfection introduces us to Migo, the Yeti town, and the mechanics of how the Yetis function in it, and very plainly details the key theme of the movie.
If there's a question causing you to go astray, just stuff it down inside until it goes away. Got it?
The rest of the songs I really do enjoy, but the last highlight I want to reference is the villain song Let It Lie by the Stonekeeper. To keep it broad so you can see for yourself, the Stonekeeper is not your typical mwahaha bad guy. There's nuance and reasoning to his actions, and it's all done.
There was a time when Yetis lived beneath the clouds. We were alive and we were thriving till we came across a crowd of Smallfoot. That's right, we used to live down there. But there were actions we could not forgive down there.
In a rap, you'd think that ruined the number. As soon as I heard the beat, I was thinking this would utterly ruin the moment of Migo confronting the Stonekeeper. But the blunt, harsh rhymes and truths of the Stonekeeper, along with the voice of Common rapping, it creates a very oppressive but engaging atmosphere that shuts down the truth-seeking Migo and spins the entire theme on its head. Smallfoot is just an emotionally driven musical. Even the one pop song in this actually serves multiple story and character purposes to this movie. And that just makes it simple for me to say, go and watch Smallfoot, if any of that sounds interesting to you, as Smallfoot is the best non-Disney animated musical. Thanks for stopping by, and feel free to comment below on what your favorite non-Disney musicals are. And tune in soon as we may have a list of our fave Disney musicals in the future. So please subscribe and hit the notification bell. And to keep up with us, just follow our social media, and if you want to support us, please go to our Patreon or TeePublic. Links are in the description below. And as always, be sure to tune in to ToonGrin.